Hello and welcome to Higher or Lower, the show brought to you by oddschecker, Spreadex and Sporting Index, where we look at the midpoints in some football spread betting markets and say if we think the eventual result will be higher or lower. I'm your host, George Ellick, delighted to be joined by Jack Wright.
Hello.
And Dan Worth.
Hello.
No point of us doing pleasantries because we've already sat here for an hour and spoken about Premier League points tallies. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you look for it after this. But here, it's all about players. We're looking at the player goals spread markets with Spreadex and Sporting Index. So the total amount of goals scored by individual players over the course of the Premier League season. So this is just league games. So if you're buying or going higher, you think they'll score more, or lower will be fewer. Yeah, this is it.
This is it.
Market you like normally?
I do like a little bit of player market. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of juice in some of these prices as well. So yeah, I think it's one to get involved in.
Juicy.
Well, we kind of talked about it off air, but the fixed odds market for this obviously has Haaland very short to win top scorer. This gives you plenty more options. If you're backing a player just to score more than the line rather than more than Haaland, there's a little bit more to play with.
There is. And you love a goal scorer market.
I do.
Love goals.
I may as well not be here because it's going to be higher for everything. Well, we'll see.
Right, well, let's get underway, and we'll start with a man that Dan has already mentioned. Erling Haaland wasn't quite as prolific as he was in his first season in the Premier League, 27 last season, and the lads at Spreadex think he'll do it again. 27.5 is the midpoint, so lower would be 27 or fewer, higher 28 or above. 3, 2, 1. On my own. Yeah, like last season, Alvarez played quite a lot, and Alvarez isn't going to be there anymore. So if he stays fit, Haaland's going to play more minutes. And if he continues scoring at the same goals per minute ratio, then he's going to get more. And last season felt like a relatively disappointing season for him with a 27 goal tally. I think if Haaland is going to score fewer than 27 goals or 27 goals or fewer this season, the only reason for that I can see is injury. So I'm going higher. Not a very long reasoning, but
it's good.
To the point, I hope.
A fair one, yeah.
Why do you think you think he's going to get injured?
I think there's a chance, yeah. I'll factor that into the equation. No, you're right. Obviously, that line is set exactly the same as last season. He had a little drop off. Obviously, he's won the Golden Boot in both seasons he's been at the club. Last person to win the Golden Boot 3 times in a row.
Who's that?
Wow, that is a very good question. Was I born?
Yes, you were. 2006.
Oh, I was born, yeah.
Yeah. Thierry Henry.
Ah.
And prior to that, Alan Shearer, and they're the only 2 people so far to have done
Similar level players to Haaland.
Yeah, he's up there, isn't he? Certainly. Yeah. So, again, I talked last time on the last show about my doubts and uncertainties around Manchester City and how that goes, and Pep in his last season, and that then filtering down to the players. Alvarez will put more pressure on Haaland. Will that mean that it's kind of earmarked games for him? Will the likes of Oscar Bob come into the games that City are expected at home to steamroll? We'll have to wait and see. But I think there is a possibility of that. Okay, I've talked about it a lot, about that expanded Champions League this season, possibly coming into it a little bit. He might well be having his game time managed. So he did have a 9-goal drop-off last season from his debut season. He did play 4 less games last season than he did in his debut season as well, so it'll be interesting to see how that one transpires. And he did score 7 in his last 5, which kind of got him over this line and kept those pesky competitors at bay for that Golden Boot. So I'm prepared to go. I think it's close, and he could easily go and score 40 goals this season. But I just thought I'd take a lower.
Yeah, I want to caveat this by saying the 2 seasons that he's had at Man City, I've been on the wrong side of this market both times. So, maybe. Yeah.
I remember sitting here last year and you lads couldn't believe I was going under.
Yeah, I think it was.
Or was it just you? You couldn't believe I was going under?
I couldn't believe it, but that's because I went under the season before he scored 36, so that was a real big pain for me.
Was it only 36? I
Yeah,
thought it was like 82.
Yeah, yeah. I know this isn't the game of higher or lower, but if we're looking at the spread betting market, you need 29 goals here to make any profit, which I can't go near, and I probably shouldn't have used that because, as I just said, it's not the game, and the midpoint is 27.5. But
you make the rules, Dan.
It's ridiculous to say, but he's got to get injured at some point, right? That's been my rationale with the 36 season. He's not going to go all season without needing a rest or being injured. I'm using it again.
And I guess there's a chance, given with Alvarez being out and him getting more minutes, and therefore slightly less able to manage his minutes.
Getting older now as well, isn't it?
Are they going to bring in a striker?
I don't actually know.
Can Oscar Bob just play through the middle?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? But look, no matter what the answer to those questions are, Haaland is going to be, everything's going to go through Haaland. He's going to need to be their main man. Particularly, we talked about us speaking about the points. So I've said that Man City are going to win the league. They're going to need Haaland to be firing. So maybe to say lower seems a bit silly, but I can't see him doing much better than last season. Plus, you've got to take the 36 out of it sometimes. And look, he's never scored more than 27, which sounds like I'm dissing him, which I'm not. 27 is obviously a fantastic return.
He missed 6 games due to injury last season. Transfermarkt give the reason for the injury stress reaction of the bone, which sounds
sounds nasty,
savage.
Yeah, there's an argument, of course, there's been since he came to the club that Pep kind of didn't necessarily want him to a certain degree, and that feels a bit more comfortable playing without him. So I wonder, is there a possibility that he might be able to use that as an excuse with Alvarez not being there, that they can actually play or we need to rest him and play a more comfortable formation, possibly. But yeah, it'll be interesting how the season pans out. I say there's a lot of uncertainties for me around City and therefore their players as well. So happy to kind of oppose them and say, oh, that's wrong. I'm not happy to oppose them. I'm quite uncomfortable opposing them, but I'm prepared to do it.
Right, next up is Alexander Isak of Newcastle United. 21 goals last season in what was a bit of a breakout year for him, I guess, although he kind of did it quite quietly. But the lads at Spreadex think he cannot repeat that trick. 17 is the midpoint here, 16 to sell, 17.5 to buy. 3, 2, 1. You're all in agreement here, and you're very keen on him, aren't you, Jack?
Yeah, this is my official tip in this market. I love this bet. I think this is I couldn't quite work out why this line is so low, to be perfectly honest. He averaged 0.8 goals per 90 last season in the Premier League.
Do you think Will Asula from Sheffield United is going to come in and take his place?
That's something else that surprised me. Yes, so 0.8 goals per 90 across the Premier League campaign last season. Only Haaland of those kind of prolific goal scorers bettered that with 0.9. As you rightly say, 21 goals last term. Only Haaland with 27 and Palmer with 22 could top that number as well. And he's been consistent really since he arrived in England. Obviously, 2 seasons with Newcastle. Now 31 goals in 52 league games. Very nice return indeed. And a key element of this for me is that he's no longer job sharing with Callum Wilson as he kind of was at the start of the process. So he's kind of won that battle now, and I assume that he will fight off the competition, as you then said, from Asulu. And I think Newcastle were ravaged by injuries last season. They had a horrendous injury crisis for much of it. If they can avoid that, that's going to help, I think, as far as Isak and his goals are concerned this time round. Of course, him being one of the ones that needs to avoid injury. And another massive element for me is the fact that there's no European competition for Newcastle. So Eddie Howe will be able to focus on, until the FA Cup rolls around, certainly, that it will be Saturday football, generally speaking, just the Premier League games to focus on and play that strongest side to get into the top 4, which I think they will do this time round, and it will be Isak that will fire them there. And of course, he also had the summer off because, being Swedish, they were not in the European Championship, so was able to put his feet up, or do whatever professional footballers do now, not put their feet up, but go for a training camp in Dubai, keep fresh.
Yeah, I fully agree. I don't see why there should be a drop off of 4 goals. Newcastle were a team last season who, from an attacking point of view, they're okay, but it obviously wasn't a great season for them. But he is the main man. It doesn't seem like there's any suggestion they're going to bring in a striker beyond Asula, who you assume is basically brought in to be someone they can bring on late to stretch games with his pace and behind. But Isak is just a quality player and someone who will continue to score goals. Obviously, you are always worried in these markets about injuries, but they have to play 10 games in order to actually trigger the bet itself. So if he gets a season-ending injury in the first few games, you are covered to an extent there. I think he's a bet also in the top goal scorer market each way. Dan?
Yeah, not really much to add on top of you two guys, but the only thing I was going to say is 21 goals last season. If you look at the stats beyond just the goals, there's nothing to suggest that he can't replicate that again. Like, it's not as if he scored 21 goals by scoring ridiculous ones or lucky goals. He had next year 22, or just a little bit over 22, so almost bang on that. He scored 21 of his 40 big chances presented, which is the second most of any player in the league. So yeah, he's going to get loads of chances. He's definitely one of the most clinical strikers in the league. I don't see him underperforming from last season, so it's got to be higher for me.
Quietly efficient.
Exactly.
Right, next up with Sporting Index is Mohamed Salah, 18 last season. Proven goal scorer at the level. 18 to sell, 19.5 to buy. So 19 is the midpoint here. Are we going higher or lower? 3, 2, 1. I can't see what Jack says. Higher.
I am high, yeah.
Is he going to Arnie slot them in the back of the net?
I mean, he could do, yes. An early runner for worst pun of the season.
What?
Jesus, that is a shocker.
What do you mean? Or do you think he's going to be petering out?
I was waiting for the
There we
petering
go,
out,
there we
yeah.
go.
That's unsustainable.
Yeah, that is unsustainable.
Okay. Let's
Jack?
play higher or lower bingo. We're going to cause the campaign. Yeah, my only doubt here is how the Arnie slot setup will impact him. He is a proven goal scorer. At Liverpool, it's been sensational, really. But the general concept of Slot coming into Liverpool is that he will play attack-centric football. He will be very exciting, or his side will be very exciting to watch. Checked out what his record at Feyenoord. I know he's obviously trying to compare different leagues, but the attack side of that, they averaged 2.44 goals across his time with them. And of course, he's got one of the best sides in the Premier League and the best striking talents and attacking talents in the Premier League. So there's no reason he can't go for a similar kind of record here. This is his 8th season at Liverpool now for Salah. I think the line is pretty much bang on, to be honest with you. And it was a bit of a coin toss to go higher or lower. I just don't see him going very much under that. In fact, last season was the first season he failed to hit 19. And that was by 1. I think there's more scope that he possibly could just have it off under Slot and go bonkers with the goals again. His season so far, 32, 22, 19, 22, 23, 19, then 18 last season. So he did miss games because he was in AFCON, and he also picked up an injury at AFCON, didn't he? So he missed 6 league games last season, which was the lowest since joining Liverpool. So I think, again, injury pivoting, that he will play the games, he'll score the goals.
Yeah, it's interesting this because I think the perception is that Mo Salah had a pretty poor season last season, but his 18 goals came in 32 games. Like his goals per minute ratio was actually better, but on the eye, it looks to me like his ability to dominate Premier League level is on the wane, and he's obviously been an incredible player during the Jurgen Klopp era at Liverpool, but Klopp is no longer there, and this is a new era, and I don't know enough about Arne Slot to know whether or not I think it's going to go well. But you have to expect there are going to be teething problems, and we don't know if Mohamed Salah is going to fit into the style of play that Slot implements. He's 32 now; like his physical attributes, I think, are starting to get on the slide. So it feels to me like it's a relatively high line for a guy who's high line for a guy who's scored 19 and 18 in his last 2 seasons, playing in an environment that we know suits him. So I'm happy to go under. It wouldn't be a massive surprise to me if he did. You know, I think if Liverpool are good, he will still be the main man. But similarly, it wouldn't be out of the blue if suddenly we see Salah's impact at Liverpool drop a little bit and possibly his minutes as well.
Yeah, that was the key thing for me is the age thing. Not that I'm saying he's too old, but like Slot being fresh in this role is probably going to be looking a bit further afield and potentially might start reducing Salah's minutes in favour of someone who's going to be there in 2 seasons. Obviously, he had the interest from Saudi this summer, which is not taken, but we kind of know what they're like. They'll probably be waiting for him at the end of next season. So maybe Slot will be thinking, well, we'll rest Salah a bit in favour of someone who's going to be here next season. I just don't think he performs better than last season. I know you mentioned the injuries. Age thing could come back into it again, and he could get injured for a large part of this season. He's never scored fewer than 18 for Liverpool, so it does scare me a little bit that if he does come under, as I'm suggesting he will, he probably isn't going to come much under. So it isn't really a pick that I'm super confident in, but as I say, I don't see him outperforming last season, so I've gone lower.
Cool. 2 more. Cole Palmer, so nearly England's hero this summer, but not quite. can't believe he did that celebration after scoring a goal in the Euros final.
Why?
Why you just think like the emotion may like overcome you and you just go crazy like Ollie Watkins did.
But not when you're cold, though.
But he still remembered that he's
cold.
you got to keep up appearances.
22 goals last season for Chelsea in the Premier League. His line is a lot lower. 15 is the midpoint, 14.5 to sell, 16 to buy. Cole Palmer, higher or lower? 3, 2, 1. All lower. All lower. Dan, you take us away. Why is Cold going to go cold?
Yeah, it's quite a drop-off, isn't it? The key thing for me is the penalties.
Correct.
Chelsea.
Although last season you're all like they'll keep getting penalties. There's no.
Well, and I'd also be like, well, he'll take their penalties, so he probably will.
And you'd be
score
like,
a
they'll
few
get
goals.
more. Yeah.
But they can't get that many penalties again. I'm not saying that he can't keep scoring penalties because I think Cole Palmer's unbelievable.
I'm on this website called WhoScored.com.
Very good.
Great site.
Great site.
Of his 22 goals last season, 9 were penalties. So 13 non-penalty goals, which I think is fewer than Jared Bowen.
Yeah. 9 penalty goals. That's got to. I think there must be like 3 teams in the whole league that had more than that. So that just shows.
And they missed a few at the beginning of the season as well.
Yeah. I mean,
he wasn't even meant to be penalty taker.
Yeah.
It's only because he won that fight at, where was it, when they won the battle, the four-way battle for the penalties.
Making me more happy with my Chelsea shout in the last show. Fewer penalties is a big thing. And we've already discussed it today on the other show, as I mentioned. The amount of players that Chelsea have, that I'm not saying they'll be fighting over these penalties, but they'll be fighting over the goals. Like Jackson's going to want to be having more. He scored 14 last season, so not too bad. And Nkunku's going to be back. He's going to be wanting to make an impact. Omora Dion.
Really love the idea that him wanting to make an impact has an impact on this.
Well, don't you think...
Nkunku's sitting there at home being like, I'm going to score more goals this season.
I'm going to take him off Palmer. But I do think it does have a slight impact because the goals are going to get shared around more.
I think Nkunku being back will impact things.
Yeah.
I don't think him wanting to have an impact is going to impact things.
Yeah. You know what I mean.
I do.
You know what I mean.
This is my job. I'm here to pick you up on stuff
to make
that you
me
say.
make sense.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Nothing more to add.
Yeah, penalties, big one for me. This is a guy who had an incredible breakout season for what ended up pretty much being a one-man team. And he still only scored 13 non-penalty goals. If we factor him in for 3 or 4 next season, then he's still going to have to maybe break into double figures, which is not a massive drop-off of what he did previously. As you say, Nkunku in, as you say, Jackson, I think will continue to be their biggest goal threat. I would have him favourite to be their top scorer next season. And massive doubts about Maresca and whether or not the style of play is going to work. So, yeah, I'm a big seller here.
All the same reasons, yeah. There's 3 kind of massive question marks. Can he replicate it? It was realistically his first full season in senior football, wasn't it? How many penalties will he get? And the fact that there's a new manager in. So more questions than answers for me. Leicester's wide players were a big contributor. That was the doubt. If Maresca's going to play that similar kind of style, then they should the wide players of Chelsea should have a key impact. But I also think that they said there's a massive amount of competition in that squad, and it will be a little bit of rotation. He's obviously not played any pre-season either, so whether that means he'll have a slower start or not, we will tell. But again, like I said, I just think there's a lot of questions. He played 33 games last season, so it's close to being as never present. Once he was in, wasn't he? Because he didn't join until, was it the second game of the season? So, yeah. I think there's enough doubts that that makes it a lower call.
Finally, a special request from Dan. Antony. Yes, you heard me right. Antony, Manchester United's star player. Eric Ten Hag's star pupil. Antony's goal spread midpoint is 3 for the season. 3. We're going over. So we're going higher or lower. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, come on. It's got to be higher.
Why?
3 goals.
He scored 1 last season.
He scored 1 last season from an XG of 4.11.
Right.
So
he's not very good at taking him.
No, listen, right.
But yeah, he's going to be on loan at Galatasaray in January, so...
Yeah, well, if he doesn't make the 10 games, then...
Well, probably will. Between now and Jan.
Yeah, maybe. He only made 15 starts. He played just over 1,000 minutes last season, so didn't play that much.
Why is he going to score? Why is he going to play more minutes this season?
Yeah, well, I think you will.
Okay.
You're glad you requested this one.
I generally think, and this is probably a ridiculous thing to say, and I know you're going to pull me up on it,
I won't.
a player that plays in that position and will get game time if he's at 3, you've got to take that. You've got to take that chance that he scores more than 3 goals in a season.
But he didn't. He scored 1 last season. I mean, he scored a great goal at Newport County away and celebrated it.
2 goals in the FA Cup. So if you just can do that form in the Prem, I'll be laughing.
He found his
If he only can play against League 2 opposition all the time, I'd probably take it.
He does shoot a lot.
Oh yeah, I've just seen his goal in the Prem against Burnley as well. So it's not looking good. No, I'm sticking to it. He's going to play more games, attacking right mid, 3 goals. You've got
to get 4.
Yeah. Still though, come on. Playing in an attacking role, he's going to get more than 4.
Okay.
4
he's
or
getting more than 4.
4 or more.
Okay, he's getting more than 3. Fine.
More than 3.
Do you have anything to say?
I don't think I need to, do I?
No, I don't think so either. Also, like if Ten Hag gets sacked during the season, which has got to be likely, then Antony just gone.
He's not a Gareth Southgate type player.
It is. I mean, there are some of these, I reckon, where you can be like, if he's going to play 10 games, and that triggers this being possibly low. But I don't think this is one of them. If it was like 1.5, I'd be like, okay, that's interesting. But like 4 goals isn't an insignificant amount of goals over a season. I think in our mind we think attacking players regularly score like 10 goals. It's just not really the case.
What's Solly March's line this season?
That's a great question.
God, I do not want to talk about Solly March.
How's he getting on? Is he available now?
Still not scored since
bought his when you bought his goal minutes like 25 or something. Solly March isn't even priced up. Because he's so out of it.
Great.
He's not even expected to score.
Any catch your eye there, George?
Yes, I do this every year, and I should stop doing it. I choose players who've signed this summer, who I think are low, and I think Füllkrug at 12.5 has to be a buy.
Love Füllkrug.
Like they've just shelled out £27 million to sign a 31-year-old striker.
Yeah.
They don't have a goal scorer who can play through the middle at all. Like Mikel Antonio has played a lot of minutes there. It tells you all you need to know. Füllkrug scored 12 goals last season for Dortmund in just over 2,000 minutes. His goal scoring record for Werder Bremen has always been very good. Comes on in the Euros for Germany and basically scored every time he came on. A direct attacking goal threat. Moisey is gone. West Ham should be a much better attacking side. Anyway, 12.5. I mean, if he doesn't get injured, he will start all season.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of minutes into his legs, and I think he's been bought in basically to elevate West Ham's attacking output. I think 12.5 is a low line for somebody who's, there's not really a ceiling there, and I'd be amazed if he didn't post decent numbers.
Yeah. Sometimes you see square pegs in round holes. We talk about it a lot. This very, very much seems like a round peg going right into a round hole.
Correct.
Yeah,
he's
and
round.
I think he's a great West Ham player.
Yeah.
I was a bit furious because I'd written up copious amounts of notes on West Ham and why I was quite bullish about them prior to Somerville, prior to Füllkrug even being rumoured to be going there on the basis of what I kind of expected to happen. And then before I could actually get that out to the public, it just that happened. And I was like, okay, well, I still like it, but just not as good odds now. But I think that's great. I'm quite excited about West Ham this season.
Nice.
And Füllkrug, Is Somerville on there? Is he?
Crescencio,
6.5.
6.5. That's low.
Stick another one on.
That's low.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a shame you're buying them both, basically, at 19. Interesting.
Because they've got a lot of goals in, and then with Kudos and with Jared Bowen.
Bowen's probably a bit high. Anyway, Dan?
I'm going to get laughed off again, I know.
No, you're not.
But similar rationale to my Antony stance.
You might get laughed off.
I'm going for Mykhailo Mudryk at 4. Midpoint of 4.
Midpoint of 4. In that case, I'm buying Füllkrug at 12 from 12.5.
Yeah, I mean, I think his to buy is 4.25.
Okay.
So,
right.
Obviously, you do need another goal.
Fine.
I just think after the last season, I was close to giving up on him because I'm pretty sure I bought at 5 last season. And I think he got 5, right? So it was null and void. Definitely didn't pull up any trees last season. But I think, and to be fair, this is my last chance with him, but I think there's a player there.
There is a player there.
My view on it is that he's just a massive confidence player, which, Chelsea's almost definitely the wrong team for someone who's a confidence player. But I'm hoping he can bag a few goals early on. Okay. And then run with it. And then I think at 4, there's quite a high ceiling to that, and hopefully he can make some profit. But I just think 4 feels a bit low for someone who scored more than 4 last season. I definitely can't see him being worse than last season.
Okay, anything to add, Jack?
No, nothing to add on that.
Excellent stuff. That brings our second preview of Higher or Lower to a close. Thank you very much to Jack and thank you very much to Dan for sharing their tips, thoughts and insight. And make sure you do check out our points spread show that we recorded before this one. Check out Spreadex and Sporting Index for all of your anti-post spread betting needs. They've got a fixed odds product on there as well. You can go to oddschecker to check the best prices on the fixed odds markets too. But there is a link in the description. If you haven't got a Spreadex account or a Sporting Index account, click on that and go through there. Hopefully lots in there. We'll be back again next week. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah. We'll be back again next week to preview the first round of Premier League fixtures. But until then, enjoy the start of the EFL season. In particular, Oxford hosting Norwich at 12:30 on Saturday for what should be a cosy home win.
He's not wrong.